Greetings, this is Chris McElrath. I am preparing this message particularly for New Vision Media shareholders and also for ZNEWS shareholders. But it may be of interest to others as our plans are interesting. So thank you. You've trusted me with your hard-earned money and invested in shares. So I'm going to give you a frank summary of where we are and a strategy for a profitable near future. The New Vision Media, or NVM, started quite modestly in East Timor with an annual budget of about $70,000 a year required, with the idea that we would gather up programming. I'd already been chairman and director of a television broadcasting entity in Australia called Link TV, and we in fact got all of our programming for nothing, so I knew that I could get access to some programming. And the general concept was that we charged $100 a minute for advertising, which is incredibly cheap for television, and that we broadcast 10 minutes of advertisements per hour. We broadcast for 10 hours a day and 365 days a year. Well, that works out at $3.6 million per year income from advertising. So, you know, with a break even of a couple of years to build up to that point, where we're getting a useful income, then we can do all sorts of interesting things. What actually happened is that instead of doing a land-based terrestrial tower sort of broadcast, we looked at doing it via satellite, and immediately we got 1,000 million viewers from a satellite hovering above Singapore, rather than just the 1 million possible viewers in Timor. So at that point, a very prominent television person became very interested, and so I asked him if he'd like to be a director of the company. That sounded fantastic, but he was a kind of mainstream guy, and big budgets and so on. So he'd expanded the budget by about 300 times what it had been envisaged as, and at the same time we had a pretty good looking financier from Kuala Lumpur. I had him checked out in 3 different ways and he looked good in all of those. So off we went, running with this $50 million budget idea rather than the $190,000 budget. There's a difference in those 2 numbers, and what actually happened, it turned out the guy wasn't capable of that bigger budget. He'd been quite successful at various hundreds of thousands of dollars deals, but not at the tens of millions. So that sort of fizzled out, and we had 1 or 2 other options which didn't turn out. So in the meantime, while waiting for all this to go on, I started ZNEWS.tv, a website with a number of documentaries on it. And that is now what we have. We have a ZNews limited company with the ZNews.tv website with thousands of viewers, with a strategy to go to millions of viewers. At that millions of viewers level, we get a useful advertising income, and we get to be profitable. So, what's the strategy to get more viewers? Well, the documentaries on the website at the moment, which are quite popular with some people, are what's really going on this planet. And it's kind of hard to find that out generally because the media companies, and you'll think this is a conspiracy theory, but it's actually a fact. Most of the big media companies are owned by the armaments companies or the banks, or an affiliation between these groups. And if you actually look at the shareholders, major shareholders of the major media, this is what you will find ultimately. if you manage to find who's behind these various companies. But it's blatantly obvious in the US. There's NBC and Westinghouse own two of the biggest networks. That's NBC owned by General Electric, and Westinghouse owns ABC America. These are two enormous networks owned directly by armaments companies. So this is a worldwide trend, and it tends to give us a very distorted and very inaccurate and very propagandized view of what's going on. So there are people who want to know what's really going on because they know they're being fooled. And this is, my passion is what's really going on. So we're going from thousands of viewers to millions of viewers by getting better shows and doing some more promotion and so on. Meanwhile, ZNEWS has this plan to do a mockumentary called Magic. We've got quite a good director. We've got a treatment which you can ask for, and I'm happy to send to you. The context is the future, where everybody has what they need. Nice idea, yeah? So, not the current situation for most people on Earth. So we have a history professor who has a class, and he shows, this is in the future, and he's showing a class some bunch of documentary clips from the 20th and 21st century. Now we happen to have a lot of those clips already on ZNews, and we can obtain a lot of others that are already made. So it's, it's stock footage is not a difficult thing. So it shows how in the 20th and 21st century we're on a catastrophic decline, heading towards extinction. That's verified by Noam Chomsky and various other, serious scholars, due to a few individuals controlling the money supply. And this is all sort of hidden somehow and hardly ever explained at all. But when you look at the actual websites and various, documents from the central banks, you discover that they are creating the money from nothing, essentially. They are owned or controlled by the private banks who do, that's a verbatim quote from the Reserve Bank of Australia to me, is that there is no limit to the amount of credit the trading banks can create from nothing. So anyway, that's the source of the problem, and it creates shortages and difficulties, debts, keeping the masses, distracted and under control. And if you look at that from a sort of bigger perspective, then there's only about a quarter of the money available compared to the goods and services which people produce and wish to buy. So there is within this mockumentary an awakening, and that actually is in parallel somewhat with what's going on right now on planet Earth in 2018. There is an awakening, and people peacefully regain control of the money supply. So then production equals the money available to the people to buy the things which are produced. It's a very simple formula which is nowhere near what's going on at the moment. So with available money equaling the goods and services actually available in the marketplace, not more money available than that, but enough to buy the goods and services in the marketplace, there is no inflation, zero inflation. So when you feed in also that the aim of automation is 100% unemployment, and hence there'll be less people able to buy things, the idea of having a dividend supplied to everybody so people can buy what they need, this is gaining popularity, this idea. It may not be all that popular with the banks, but they will not be displaced. They'll be used as part of this function of distributing dividends for people so they can buy what they need. Anyway, that's sort of that. You can apply for, and I'll happily send you a treatment of that film idea. So in essence, NVM has failed as far as I can see. It's not doing anything. It hasn't issued anything recently, any news of any activities. I know that many of the websites and company names and so on have not been renewed. So it's really not going anywhere. However, ZNEWS or ZNEWS Limited is on the rise. It's registered in New Zealand. You only need to apply for shares in ZNEWS if you haven't already done so. NVM shareholders get them for nothing, although I am now thinking I should charge a $20 administration fee to actually make the recordings and print the share certificates and mail them out. So, but compared to what you've put in for shares, that's minuscule. It's either sort of nothing, or you get shares in ZNEWS. You'll get hard copy shares, which will be sent out. Share certificates will be sent out soon, and there is, because the current news organisations have links to the banks and so on. There's a lack of accurate information. So ZNEWS will provide this. There's a lot of other people doing so also, but we can get the very best of what's available and issue our own bulletins as well. So it will include a redesign of the money system, and while there is breath in my body, I will do everything I possibly can to make this company profitable. That is my promise to you today. So please contact me if you have any constructive ideas. If you'd like to get shares in ZNEWS, my email is chris@znews.tv. That's CHRIS @ZNEWS.tv. I thoroughly welcome all constructive inquiries. And if you haven't already seen this on www.znews.tv, then I suggest you have a look at that and see what else we've got going. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Bye for the moment.